LA5.
KG3.
Ah, I
That's a
have to.
fine mug you got there.
It's the finest. I put an R on the front, just in case you forgot that my name was real. It was a devil. KG3 at it again. I have to point out right now, though, I love the glass cupboard behind you. That reminds me
Ah,
of
yes.
that reminds me of my grandparents' generation, even my parents' generation, because you don't see anyone our age really having stuff like that. But you see that where there's glassware and tableware just ready to be
Hmm.
used, but only for occasion. That's for occasion. Otherwise, it's just set there and it's a conversation piece for people who are. Oh, that's a nice set of dishware you got there. Oh, we got that back at our anniversary. It was
Oh,
passed down to us, and then there's just that one person. I like plates.
yeah. I don't think that is that one, but I know my sister has one like that. It's
Oh,
all of the nostalgic things with grandma. But this is your first suggestion, I think. This glass is like that unicorn glass that shimmers a blue and a pink.
oh, that's
So
interesting.
it's very new and it's very like, yeah, I call it glorified glasses.
Glorified glasses. It
So
it
I
goes
think it's the
beyond what you need.
anticipation. It's the anticipation of some kind of a future event to be ready for that event of, ooh, when that happens. Now that makes me think of Sean Connery. And
What?
one of his famous sayings, the anticipation of death is far worse than death itself.
Well said,
But
Mr.
what about
Connery.
what about if we flip that and the anticipation of something grand can actually be more exciting and rewarding than when you actually experience that grand thing?
Oh,
So the
there's truth to
anticipation
that.
in itself could be a gift. It could be a kind of exciting, that hopeful feeling where it's like, oh man,
Of
that would
course.
be really neat.
That's exactly what it
It's
is.
motivating. It invigorates, it prepares, and it stimulates for what is to come.
The excitement of future events absolutely sometimes can surpass the actual event itself, but it always makes it good. It's the
Mm.
same as we discussed last time. It's like the dreading of something, and then oh, it didn't turn out to be anything bad. But at the same with the same respect, expecting something to be good and excited for something, you're usually never let down. And
Often,
even if there is a little bit of a letdown, it's just more you're like, I was so excited, it plateaued.
yeah. And what about those circumstances where it actually is exceeding expectations? It's
Ooh,
actually better than expected. How awesome
I
is that?
it's the best. I can give you a solid example that is
Mm.
culturally relevant. Deadpool and Wolverine. I knew I was going to enjoy it, but it exceeded expectations of how much I did.
Mm.
It is just a beautiful story about superheroes disguised as friendship. It's a story of friendship, both on the camera and off the camera, because Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman off camera, you can just tell how good friends they are. So to see them have that movie together and give such respect to the source material of those characters and the legacy of the Fox Marvel universe as they merge into Disney, wow. And the comedy aspect of everything was just fantastic.
Yeah, expectations. That's a funny one, eh?
It
Like
is.
what about those moments where, you just find yourself doing something, but you don't have any like desire to not do it, so you just keep on doing it. And so at that point, you really have one choice or the other. You can just mindlessly let yourself coast through this experience that I don't seem to stop myself from having, or I can actually look a little bit deeper and see what this is actually about because maybe I'm missing something and maybe this is something really good if I interpret it for what it is as opposed to what I think it is supposed to be.
Hmm.
For example, I was watching a movie this morning on Prime and it's called Space Cadet. And when I saw it,
Oh,
I'm like,
that
ooh,
show,
that
yeah.
looks like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like that looks like a really neat now sci-fi, maybe very, I don't know, philosophically sound that I'll be able to get some really nice nuggets from. And I saw it as being like a very sophisticated projection as to what's going to deliver. And I started watching it. I'm like, is this a Nickelodeon production? Is this for 12-year-olds? It totally feels like it. Like even the sound production sounds like it's kind of cartoony. And so my mind was going down this path of judging it as like, is this any good? It's like I don't know. It's not great.
Yeah.
Should I even be watching this? Should I turn it off? But I didn't find myself turning it off. I just kept on watching. I'm like, well, the acting's pretty good, actually. I mean, yeah, that is a little bit outrageous, but I like it. Oh, what if there's actually a great depiction of a metaphor of how this matrix works right here in this reality that I
Mm.
can gain just by watching what they are demonstrating and acting out within the story. Maybe it's about the story and not about the production quality as to how I think it needs to be. That's interesting. And then that put me back into the movie again because now I'm not like thinking negatively of it. I'm looking for what kind of value is already there being imparted, expecting that there's going to be something valuable downloaded into me through the experience. And then I got into it. I thought it was great. It was fun. I was enthusiastically interacting with like all the characters. I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing. Like for example, there's this one gal. She plays the role of the best friend, and her superpower is being a deceiver.
Mhm.
And so she's just doing all these little deceptive little things, and like there's some kind of a like little judge inside of me that wants to be like, oh, that person. Oh, she's so judgmental. She's so deceiving. Meanwhile, this voice is judging her while it's saying that she's judgmental. It's like that's funny. But point is, point is, another voice came in and said, "Well, yeah, she's playing her role and she's playing it perfectly. Look at how great her little nuances are of projecting that exact spirit. That's hilarious, actually. Once you see it for what it is, it's actually kind of funny. And look what a great job she's doing as an actress." And so, a completely different tone once again, and taking it differently as to what I was originally projecting onto it negatively. And it's like, well, this is fascinating. How much of experience is actually perception and interpretation?
It's so
And what
true.
if, KG3,
LA5.
what if, this is heavy,
If what?
what if the only thing we can control is our response and
Boom.
placement of attention?
Boom. That's all we can control. Absolutely. We can force other things, but the only thing we can control is ourselves and how we respond. I'd love to piggyback on you. Let's just keep plugging some shows now. This one is on Crave. So back when I was in my early teens, I want to say, me and my sister and my mom, for that matter, came across this cartoon called Clone High. Are you familiar?
Mm-mm.
It's about okay, so it's a series about this scientist who opens up a high school and then digs up all of these old celebrities or old famous people, Cleopatra, Abe Lincoln, JFK, and he clones them and puts them into high school. And so
Okay.
yeah, and it is just absolutely hilarious. It is so funny. It's very edgy, very crude humor, but done perfectly. Ironically, made by
Hmm.
the two fellows who made the Lego movie, which I thought was fantastic. But so it was a series that got one season. It was going to have more, but one of the characters they actually made fun of was Gandhi, and that caused a huge uproar in India, of all things. And the people of India went on a hunger strike, and there was something like over 1 million people went on a hunger strike to get this show canceled because of the show's depiction of Gandhi. So the
Hmm.
show got canceled, and it was always just lost media that was just hilarious. We loved it, and we could go back and watch it like all the time and just enjoy it. So then here it is 20 years later, and they have revamped the show, this time leaving Gandhi out and bringing in new characters. We're so excited. It's new Clone High. We finally get to watch more. I couldn't get 5 minutes into the first episode for the very reason you were saying. I was so jazzed that it was new Clone High, but it's been 20 years. Humor has changed. the atmosphere has changed, the spectrum has changed, and the show reflects that. And so I went in expecting to laugh at some really edgy, crude humor, and you can just tell the creators are tiptoeing and not necessarily embracing what they used to do. And of course, like some actors have moved on, so some voices are different. They don't use certain characters. They brought in new characters. They got the DEI going through the whole show. So I was excessively let down. I called my sister. I'm like, wow, they've changed the show completely. And she's like, yeah, I know. I noticed that too. Me and my man tried to watch it. We couldn't even get into it. Needless to say, I decided for whatever reason to try it again. Only this time, not expecting the same show as when I was younger.
Hmm.
And much to my surprise, here I am, almost done season two.
Oh.
I kept watching, and it is not the same, but it's still Clone High. It is definitely the updated modern version within a lot of respects. But the more I watched, the more I still saw what I will call the soul of the show, because it's the same
Hmm. What would
creators
you?
come back. The soul of the show is the soul of the show is actually the relationship between all the characters and their
Oh.
personalities. And in within the first episode of the first 5 minutes, which really you can't judge much off that except for comparing it to the old, it felt very different because back in the old, the characters are pretty. I'll use the word rough against each other. There's the stereotypical, like there's the popular one, the nerds, the sex acts, like just like all over the place characters, and those characters are all still here today, but they're making them interact with each other in different respects in different ways. And certain characters are now friends, other characters are now dating, and just like it's a different atmosphere for the characters that they've been put in. But the more I watch the show, the more I realize these actually are still the same characters. They're just in a different world. And it's just very true.
Hmm.
They've acknowledged that the world has changed and is different. And for the most part, yeah, I have to say it's a binging show. I don't like I'm doing other things while it's on. But I have to say, it is the one where my expectations went from so excited because it's my childhood to being like, this isn't my childhood, but why would it be? It's been 20 years, you know?
You're not your childhood.
I'm not my childhood exactly. So I was able to sink down and enjoy it for what it's become. And what it's
Ah,
become
wow.
is it's it definitely is just the modern day version of the show. Which for
Hmm.
better or for worse, it just is that. And the one thing that's nice is it's Clone High. The best way I can describe it is I don't think the Hobbit movies will ever touch Lord of the Rings, but when I was watching them, it was nice to be back in Middle Earth.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. So would you say it's safe to say that how we receive something is really the determining factor as to how we're truly going to experience it, whether pleasant or not?
It's the only way. How we receive is purely on us, and it's our
Hmm.
choice in every situation. If the situation around us is a positive one, we can still choose to be in our bubble and not interact with it and still be, I'll use the word depressed, and just keep ourselves detached from it. Or we can engage with it and become a part of the good time. Same thing
Hmm.
with a negative. The best example right now is you can look around the world and see that there are these proxy wars going on. There are civil unrest in the streets. There's protests everywhere. There's all these things that are being pushed at us as negative. But then when you just are out and about in your daily life, it doesn't seem too much that, as a grand whole, people are necessarily in a negative space. Even
Yeah.
for ourselves, we can be the reason that others aren't in that negative space. If we're the ones, even with all these crazy things happening around the world, but we're the ones walking around with a positive disposition and trying to bring out the best in people, we can be the reason that these situations change. Now, I'm not
Hmm.
saying that it's up to us to go across the world and stop the conflicts, but how we interact with it and also with ourselves and everyone else on a daily basis It is a ripple effect. I saw this
Sets the
cool
tone.
video. It sets the tone. I saw this cool video where this guy set up this domino effect, and it's just so true. And he said it's about faith and how the smallest the smallest thing can bring out big change. And he sets up these dominoes where the last domino is actually 150 pounds, and it keeps getting smaller as it goes down. And the very first domino is the size of a grain of rice, and he just taps it, and it falls into the next one, falls in the next one, and it's just eventually it that grain of rice set off a chain reaction to knock down that 150-pound slab. And that's just how it is. Faith leads to greater change. But you have to believe in it. If you're never going to believe, if you just look at the first grain of rice and look at that 150-pound block and nothing in the middle, you're always going to assume that nothing will change. But when you look at all the structures that will be or have to be put in place for it to happen, and I guess that's the big thing. Everyone is wanting that 150-pound slab to just come down as a grain of rice. No one wants to do all the work in between. And that's a
Mm,
solid one for myself and I think life in general. We want the end result instead of focusing on the journey. Something I know we've
mm.
talked about before. It's the journey. We have to make the journey be the goal. Whatever the final solution is, the journey is the goal to that solution.
It's funny because the verse of the day on the Bible app today was 1 Peter 5:6, and it says that those who bow low before God will find that he will lift them up in his timing and exalt them. So there's that process. There's that first little grain of rice that does the bow, and then time plays out. Circumstances build on one another until Babumbier, this huge monumental thing just takes place where no one could ever believe that one little piece of rice could really move that 150-pound slat
That's
of
right.
metal. And it's like, wow. But what did that little rice do? He kept the faith.
Kept the faith.
Kept the faith. Yeah, had his moment of humility and then let the process play out. And then time revealed the truth of the scenario.
Beautiful. I had it's of all conversations, and I love that I had this experience. I was doing a night shoot on film set on Friday night, and I ran into one of my old buddies who I haven't seen in must be at least over a year, and then even before that, it was a couple years, and we had actually worked on a movie together and hung out a few times outside of set, but then just life takes you in different directions, and he was always a good guy, and we run into each other on set on Friday night, and he says to me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll catch up and stuff." And then when we finally have a moment, just because we're working, I was like, "So how you been? What's new?" And he goes, "I've been great, actually, really good." So I say, I was like, "Oh, that's wonderful. What is it that is, what has made you so great?" And he goes, "Well, I have been reignited with faith, and it has changed my life." And my eyes just light up, and I look at him and I go, "Please tell me your story. I want to know." And he just says he went to church. He says he was just in a place where he just needed to find something, and he ended up going to church. And he said it just the communal aspect and this everything he was hearing from the priest just reignited him, where he started to read scripture, and he says for the last year he has felt so good and has just his whole perception of everything has changed, and is so happy that he has found a new relationship with God. And so I was able to say
Mm.
to him, it's amazing that to hear this, because I'm happy to say I too have reignited my relationship with God. And so for the next 2 hours on set, whenever we weren't working, we would just be smiling ear to ear, talking about God and faith and everything amazing. And one of the ones that he said, and I piggybacked on, and just we agreed, which we can bring back to what we're saying, is the idea. I believe it's in. Oh, I hope I don't get it wrong, but I probably will. I believe it's in Corinthians, and it is putting yourself in the perception of gratitude and gratefulness, and always being in a constant state of prayer. If you're always in a state of prayer, you are never going to feel depressed, anxiety, because you are with God at all times. And what a beautiful thing that is, because that is why that grain of rice can push down that giant slab. And it's because it's
Hmm.
in that constant state, and that state ripples through.
Hmm.
Ripple, XRP. uh,
Yeah, no, I know the exact verse that you're talking about. And I've actually, it's one of the key verses that is part of the entire concept of good gift theory,
mhm.
because it's dealing with the attention, and it's dealing with fundamental facts as to how this universe is designed, and it's designed with illusion at the center of it. It's actually a very stubborn holographic mirage of sorts.
Yes, it is.
But with those illusions comes purpose. So it has to be made this way for us to be developed and grown into something so much greater than we can imagine. So we have to have this experience, though seemingly real and seemingly scary, is actually a completely controlled process. There's nothing uncontrolled about it. It has a certain outcome that's already locked in 100%. But we don't experience it that way. We experience it like we're in control of everything, and it's up to us to make it happen. Otherwise, we die.
Yeah.
It's a much different experience. But what I find neat about it is it brings the idea of super determinism into play, where whatever is going to happen is already slated to happen in an energetic fashion. Everything is lined up, and everything has a cause and effect sequence on everything in existence. And we are doing those things. We are making those actions and making those choices that are causing the change. But all of that change was already pre orchestrated prior to it ever even beginning. However, if that's true, which is a pretty shocking concept to try and understand, but if that is actually true, that would mean then that the only thing that we have control over and the only thing that matters is our placement of attention and our interpretation of what's happening. Those are the only two things that matter, because everything else is going to happen the way that it's meant to happen and always was going to happen. There's no change in it, even though we have the experience and the illusion of being the change, of making the choices, of taking the actions. That's part of the illusion of control. However, I think it changes the game once we are actually aware enough and strong enough to actually place our attention intentionally on what is beneficial and what is true, and interpret it in a way that is always good, because that is always true. Otherwise, Romans 8:28 is completely wrong. But it states very specifically every little detail. We can be convinced that every little detail of our lives are orchestrated together for good. That means everything's accomplishing something good, no matter what. So if I interpret it that way, there's a chance I'm interpreting that 100% bang on. But if I'm not interpreting it as something good, well, then that's a 100% chance that I'm getting it wrong. So I might as well start with good and then work from there to get the truth. But I got to start at least by interpreting it as something that is good and
That's right.
beneficial.
Hmm.
So what if it's true that that is the only thing that we have control over? I mean, what parameters do we need to identify where should my attention go? What would be the best thing that I can do with my attention? We do have guidelines. One of those elements is keep your mind continually on things that are authentic and real, admirable, worthy of praise, things that are beautiful, pure, and holy. If there's anything of excellence, continually think on these things, and the God of peace will be with you at all times. So we can even just take one of those elements, worthy of praise. What is one thing in my moment right now that I can genuinely say is worthy of praise? As in, nicely done. I like that. I can appreciate that. KG3's face, that is well designed. That is a well designed face.
I thank man. Thank you, Lord.
You know, whatever it is, maybe it's our pet, maybe it's just the air is really, really clear and it's
Well,
really satisfying to the lungs.
well, let's bring it back. You look right behind you. That's a nice collection of crystal glassware.
Ah, yes. Well, that's actually that is very true. That is worthy of praise. It's
It
very
is.
nice. It's
Because
not mine,
it's so much
but I
more,
like it.
but it's so much more than just the glassware. It's even the conversation that we were able to have just because it exists. Because it doesn't just, I don't just look at it and go, oh, plates and glasses. It takes me back to my own experiences of childhood and happy memories because my grandparents had that. And now my parents have it in
Ah,
their house. It attaches to memory more than just being a intangible object.
and that gives you a sense of appreciation because it's something you can appreciate
That's right.
and it's specific to you.
Yeah.
So what if every single moment is like a treasure hunt where God has placed
I
something,
like that.
just one little detail at all times, no matter what. It's there. It's just our objective is to find it.
I love that. I love that how you worded that. It's always a treasure hunt. If
Mm.
we're looking at the map, we can go, oh, look, there's sea monsters over here, and this is the Dungeon of Doom, and over here there's living skeletons. But then there's the X. X marks the spot. There it is. Let's go get our ship. Let's get our crew. Let's get to that X. There's going to be a lot of turmoil, but that X is our objective. X marks the
Right.
spot. Uh, uh,
Yeah, and then along the way there's something for every moment. There's something
mhm.
for every second.
That's right.
Uh the only difference is whether or not we become aware of it.
Hmm. I'll I feel like it still connects because one of the conversations I had on set when discussing these of these natures, one thing I was able to bring out was how no matter what, attached to the treasure map of everything. There's always something good. There's always a treasure. It's acknowledging that there's always something new taking place. But for something new to take place, there's also something dying. The old has to make way for the new. So when you see something changing, instead of holding on to it for dear life and saying, no, don't change, don't be different, oh no, look for where it's going, how you can help it get there in the best way possible, but also be ready to take the step without it.
Mm.
And that can go in so many ways. And to do it in a blunt way, when you're losing a loved one, you gotta, as much as you want to spend as much time with them and be with them at all times, you gotta also prepare for the fact that they won't be there soon. And that's just a sad part of life. That it's also the most beautiful part because you get to then appreciate. Then you truly do appreciate. I don't think us as a society, at least in the West, and maybe I'm speaking only for myself and not really for everyone else, but I don't think we are introduced to death very well. I
Mm.
think we see it as such a horrible thing that we don't want to ever take place, and at the same time, it is what makes life beautiful because
Mm.
that's it makes us appreciate things because there is a finite time we have together on this plane, and yeah, I don't really know how much further I necessarily want to go down that path, so I'm gonna pivot away.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I mean that's some fundamental truths there. And it does make it more valuable when something is temporary in this experience where we are. But I mean the way that I see that too is it's no different than waking up from a dream for that person.
hmm,
They're waking up from a dream. I do it every single night. I transition from a dream state where I feel like I'm having normal conscious experience, and then all of a sudden I wake up here. And I completely forgot that this is where I actually was from. I thought I was from my dream world. I don't think it's any different at the next iteration too. where people simply, once they die on this plane, that's just them waking up from the Earth dream into base reality, where they actually came from. And
Yeah,
that's
I
where they
see.
are. And that's where I'm going too. So I'll see them soon. I just gotta finish out this dream sequence first.
That's right. There's a fun episode of Rick and Morty. It's just a quick couple minute segment where he I forget what the game's called, but it's just like a generic name. It's like come play Gary, and they put on this Morty puts on this helmet, and he just out of nowhere, well, the second he puts on the helmet, he's now just being born as a baby, and then this guy's entire life plays out, but then he opens up a mattress store and one of the mattress like when he's an adult, right? And then it's him running this mattress store for years and years, and he has a family, kids, and he's taking down this mattress for a customer, and it falls on him and it kills him. And then out of nowhere, like the show started to follow this character for so long. It must have been like 5 minutes of the show. It's a half-hour show, right? And then out of nowhere, just boom, snaps to Morty, and he's like, "Oh, well, no, what happened? My wife." And then Rick's like, "It's just a game, Morty. Takes the helmet off. It's just a game. We gotta keep moving." And he's just like, "Oh," he's like, "I just lived a whole life." He was like, "You're in there for 2 seconds, Morty." And it's just that idea because like within here, they always say it's like time is an illusion, right? Like time only exists here on this plane. So what is, and we talk about that, it's talked about like that in the Bible. 900 years is how old Adam and Eve were, but 900 years to God was, I believe, it was either a day or an hour. It was something super short. So that lifespan of Adam and Eve, where they're constantly feeling like they don't understand why they're here and they've been kicked out and they're suffering here. That sentence was the snap of a finger for God, but for them it felt like an eternity. And then
Mm,
even for us, it's just like as like we're here, and there's moments where man, it's interesting how time feels like it drags on. And then there's moments where to go? Where did the time go?
hmm.
And I find myself in that secondary camp the older I get, and that's because time's relative. So of course, like the more hours we have, the quicker they go. More years, because I recall back in the day when actually I think you brought this up last time, just summer breaks where oh man,
Living free.
yeah, just they lasted so long, and then now here we are. I remember just a couple months ago, it's like oh wow, it's June, summer's around the corner. Here we are, mid August already. Like
Hmm.
where's the time go?
Yeah, I understand it as a very common illusion, one
Mm-hmm.
that's been studied scientifically. And it
Yeah.
was on a series called Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman. And they said they tried to come up with the answer. Does the perception of time speed up as you age?
Mm-hmm.
And the equations suggest that it's the square root of our age as to how we perceive time going by. And it speeds up as we get older by
Mm.
the factor of the square root of our age.
That is quite an interesting thing.
Speaking of which, I had a dream one time, and in my dream, I had a 7 day experience as a family vacation in Hawaii. I went to bed in my dream, and I woke up in my dream to have another day with my family in Hawaii. Then went to bed again, and I woke up again and did the exact same thing. Then I did it again for 5 more days. Then
Take
I
that,
finally
Air.
actually woke up.
Take that, Air Canada. You wake up and there's a
Yeah.
bill on your table.
Expedia.ca.
How was your
I'll be
how was your dream vacation? Rated 5 stars.
Yeah, you now owe $5,899.
That
But we
sounds
hope you
about
had a great time.
accurate.
And you know what? I could just like dream up, have some money throw up in my hand, and then boom, they can have that too. Because that would be part of the dream sequence. Clearly, Expedia is not going to actually do that in real life.
Of
So
course.
I have to be dreaming if that's happening.
Exactly. I
Which means a
dreamed I
monkey
got
can come up to me and give me cash, which also happened. Then it turned to Monopoly money instantly. I looked down. He gave me like a fresh wad of 50s and 20s of Canadian freshly printed plastic bills. This was back in like 2016 too. I don't even know if we had those bills back then. We might have. But then I looked at him like, oh, thanks, monkey. He scampered off into like a little window in the kitchen somewhere. Then I looked back down at my hand, and it's Monopoly money. It transformed.
Well, now, was it Monopoly money with the Monopoly man, or was it a Monopoly man monkey?
Pretty sure it's Monopoly Man, but like I'm guessing at this point. I
So,
just recognize it as Monopoly money for sure.
so this monkey understands currency, but not currency outside of a game. It assumes that the monopoly money is the same as our currency in the real world. And now I'm deep diving into your dream of a monkey handing you money turned into monopoly money. This monkey knows of currency.
And that is one interpretation. I mean, personally, I felt like it was a prophetic dream of hyperinflation, but
Oh.
who knows?
And the monkeys just keep passing around the monopoly money. They don't care who they're handing it to. You look down the beach, he's handing it to everyone.
Mm. Yeah, I
uh,
mean, it's happened thousands of times in history, so it's probably going to happen again, I would
Absolutely.
imagine.
There's always some
But we do
form
have a
of
new tool this
something.
time. We do have something new. We've never had decentralized ledger technology before when we're coming to the end of a banking system and the start of hyperinflation. We've never had that.
That's true. It's going
So
to
we
send
don't
ripples through
know.
the economy.
Yeah,
Ah.
sneaky.
Yeah. Oh, it's exciting. It's
Just to level the
exciting.
playing field. He's talking about XRP, just for all the listeners, in case
That's
they're
right.
wondering.
No, I want it to be sneaky like how they are with it. Look up Ripple XRP, everybody. Isn't that exciting though? We finally have, I say this as if it makes a difference because now I'm hearing there's still more dates for this case. Like, is the case done? What is going on? Because I know now they have to pay a certain amount, which we've been waiting for them to settle. So now that that has been decided, is it just done?
Yes,
Okay.
but the SEC can appeal if they want. But do
Like
they
ask
want
for
to?
more?
That's the question.
Right.
Yeah,
Like they could
they're
ask for
perceiving
more.
it as a win already. They're touting that their $125 million fine that they forced Ripple to pay is a huge win for them. So maybe they're happy with that. Maybe that's enough. Maybe they can go after smaller fish now that
Yeah.
are easier to fry.
No
Who
kidding.
knows?
Um, when did that start? Was that 2020? That was December of
It was
2020.
December. Yeah,
4
long time.
years. Yeah.
But you know what? What if none of it was actually a coincidence? What if
I
all of it was actually a complete setup to have regulation ready for this moment right now, right before we step into something new?
I truly believe it is. I don't just look at the state of the financial world or even the state of American politics. Because let's be real, the rest of the world has embraced Ripple and attached them to a lot of their systems. It's just been waiting for America to get regulation proper.
Hmm.
But when it comes to, uh, yeah, it being orchestrated, I completely believe that. If you look at how Amazon was before it took off, it was under heavy scrutiny from the SEC. And then
Well, I mean,
look at where, yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
here's
Go
an
ahead.
interesting connection.
Yeah.
It was under Trump's administration that they opened up the case against Ripple
Mm-hmm.
to begin with. Is it a coincidence that Trump is now going to be reinstated right when now Ripple has full clarity and regulation?
I want to say there are no coincidences.
What if that was the plan all along? That's why they opened the case, because that was the only way to get through the deep state players that are at the SEC, was
I
to
could
put it
definitely
through the
see it.
legal process and let the truth come out,
Yeah.
and then set that up so that they can't fire that bullet now. It's
Yeah.
already been fired,
It's true. Like, cause 4
and now
years,
it's time to fly.
well, 4 years for this case. And I was reading somewhere it was the amount of appeals and documents filed just to do with this case is staggering. Like every stone, as they say, it's just like leave no stone unturned. They didn't just unturn the stones, they broke them down to a fine gravel and then overturned every single piece. It's
Hmm.
it's amazing how long this case has taken. And I'll say as someone who uh, followed the case almost on a daily basis to a certain degree. Holy cow, I give so much credit to all the people online who broke down the legal jargon for us
Ah, yes, yeah,
the
yeah.
whole way through, yourself included. You did a great job of keeping us informed, like through your Telegram and all that. Because it was interesting just to be able to follow along on something that I have very little knowledge about, but feel like I have retained a lot of good information, all thanks to good folks such as yourself, LA5, who said, hey, this is what they're doing and this is why. Here's what the outcome could be, or it could be this. There was plenty of people who were always every day was this is it, the switch is about to be flipped, you know? The amount of times I heard that every day was nauseating. However, now that we're at the end of it, it's interesting to see how many of those people have calmed down and said, it'll happen when it'll happen. And I think we're finally at that moment.
Mm,
Yeah, I've held off saying it, but before the end of this year, I do believe the switch will be flipped.
mm,
Because it has to be. The way the world is right now, it's just craziness.
mhm. Yeah, I don't know the events and I don't know the timing, but it does feel plausible that we're about to experience the transition
Mm-hmm.
from the old to the new. And yeah, that could go in a few different ways that I can see. But in either case, stepping into something new, it's going to be extremely exciting because this is the first time that I understand on global economics where for decades, mass amounts of wealth have been printed
Hmm.
and in some ways actually created. And a lot of that value had to be locked up into different accounts simply because of how our banking system works. So at any given moment, typically there's upwards of over $27 trillion stagnant, like a rotting pond, just sitting in accounts so that our inefficient system can take from it and complete the transaction while the actual payment is being processed for 1 to 10 days. That's why you need 27 trillion plus dollars just sitting stagnant, not accomplishing anything. However,
Wow.
in the moment that decentralized ledger technology for the banking system is ignited, the way that it's already set up to run, those 27 trillion plus dollars are liberated instantly because now everything settles in 3 seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
And that will bring, at least temporarily, prosperity on a global level that we've never seen before. Because that money doesn't need to be printed, it's already there, which gets around the problem with printing more money and devaluing how far each dollar can go. Now, we don't need to change the amount of how much the dollar goes, because now we just have access to 27 trillion more of those dollars that are already in existence. So it's prosperity without the burden of devaluing the currency. First time it's ever happened.
Yeah.
So we're going to see what kind of an effect that has. And my guess is that it's going to be a time of peace and prosperity because everyone's going to have what they need. And there shouldn't be any wars. It's probably going to be a peace treaty signed that's global. And we'll have that pocket of time when everything is great. It
Yeah.
doesn't solve the problem yet because the problem is greed. And the
Yes.
problem is the desire to control. That's not solved yet. But this will temporarily give a window of time of peace and prosperity unprecedented.
Well, it's always interesting talking about level the playing field, and there is a interesting scenario that I could line up about to do with we'll call the leveling. The amount of mass migration that has taken place over the last few decades, but especially since COVID, but only in the Western world, that has caused an influx of like job and housing scarcity. With those two things happening in what was considered the first world, having a level playing field would mean having it where everyone almost is financially ruined, so they can implement this system and say, "Here you go." That may be a bit looking on a bit of a dour viewpoint,
That is an
but
option, though.
it seems kind of connected on a certain level, because wouldn't that also be it go you go from this situation where everyone, it's like you it's the problem reaction solution. You create the problem, you wait for the reaction, and we are in the reaction stage right now when it comes to how migration has been handled. And I believe that the new financial system will be a part of the solution that they
Yeah, the
themselves
only.
have set up. And I the one thing I understand that is counteractive to that is what we were just discussing, because Ripple, I don't think, has anything to do with that. But I think it will be used to help that solution. I think they wanted their own system that Ripple has now shown they're better at anyway. And because of that, the solution will be Ripple will be a part of the solution, but it's not the solution they wanted. And I think this is what we are discussing. We can piggyback to what we said before about something old always has to die for something new to take place. The old system thought they were going to be the one implementing something new. They were going to be the solution still, but I don't think they are. I think Ripple will be the solution. Ripple and companies like it that have nothing to do with the old system. It is something completely new. And the old system, as it's dying, will realize we have to pivot and let go of our control to allow us to even
Mm,
survive in the new system. And I think that is
hmm
what will
hmm
take place, because a lot of old money, we'll call it, are starting to pivot into newer technologies and newer means of finance. And but they're pivoting into it where they're a part of it, but they're not in control of it.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that has a very high probability as being the way it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's got to be a level of control, and it doesn't fit. Like for example, Trump said that he will not allow a CBDC the
Mm-hmm.
way that you know the powers that be want it to be there, where it has a social credit score attached to it, and there's confinements and
Yeah.
the limits to how much you can save and stuff like that. It's not going to be programmable in that sense. And so that tells me that there's at least a huge body of thinking that's saying that CBDCs are no good.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were to try to even attempt something like that after, let's say, a cyber attack and say, okay, citizens, I know you don't want this, but it's for your own good. We're going to make sure this happens. And you can't save more than $3,000. You have to spend at least $1,000 every month, and a social credit score of whatever we say are the rules is going to determine whether or not you get to buy. That would cause an uproar. There's too many people in the line of thinking that that is a terrible thing, including all of the Trump and probably Trump supporters, which is a huge number of people.
Yeah.
And so that level of thinking in size is too large.
Mm-hmm.
There wouldn't be the ability to control that. So that tells me that even if they were still in control of the situation, they wouldn't be able to go that direction because that would be a bad chess move.
Yeah.
That would just cause them to be checkmated in the end from
I,
numbers.
I agree.
So in either case, I think the solution ahead is going to be more of the peaceful resolution, and likely because it's simply the better solution to the problem that was come up with the private sector
Mm-hmm.
outside of the system.
Yes,
More efficiency,
that's right.
better value.
It's coming.
Mm.
It's already here. It just has to be implemented. And
hmm
all the it is so I find it always fascinating that when I'm looking into these newer systems being implemented and talked about, it's never being talked about on a corporate stage. It's being talked about behind closed doors. You have to watch these conferences with these billionaires and these CEOs, because they're not hiding it. They're not. doing it like behind, like they're not doing it in like where we the public cannot witness it happening, but it's not being pushed by the mainstream narrative at all. The mainstream narrative is, look at all these horrible things going on around the world, look at all this turmoil, look at your political system, look at this circus, look at
Hmm.
the like circus and bread, right? That's being pushed on the mainstream stage. But if you do your own research, you're able to still watch what they're doing behind, or like it, yeah, not behind, it's not, again, I don't want to say behind closed doors, it's right in front of our faces. You can see what they're doing, but you yourself have to be interested enough to look at it.
Attention placement and what's true.
That's right, attention placement. It's a horrible thing what's happening all around the world with these wars, but it's fascinating to see what's taking place with these major banks and financial institutions getting together and discussing what their plan is for the future.
Hmm.
It's very, yeah, it's very interesting. It's
Yeah.
it's draining to hear all these politicians be virtue signaling and talking about, oh, we got to do this to save the planet. And it's still also fascinating to watch these engineers and scientists create these solutions that those guys aren't talking about, because those
Hmm.
guys are only talking about it so you can be taxed more or send money, where there are actually people though who are discussing solutions. They're not talking about problems, they're discussing solutions.
So here's a really interesting thing. I like to look at life as cycles and all of creation as cycles, playing out programs, basically perpetuating themselves. And everything is absolute because of it. And I think King Solomon was, well, he asked for wisdom. And so he was gifted the gift of wisdom. And one of his quotes is, a person or a group of people who accumulate huge levels of wealth through unjust means by charging excessive tax rates or excessive interest rates, they only end up gathering all that money for a person who is kind and generous towards the poor. So that makes me think of a cycle where you have, very greedy establishments around the world that are basically siphoning money from the public and charging crazy amounts of interest that all goes into building these accounts. But after all of that effort, eventually, because of what's right, those accounts get dispersed again out to the people that really need it. And so the person who is able to steward that money for the betterment of other people becomes the one who becomes a money manager in the end of those big accounts. No matter what that greedy establishment tries to do, they're not going to be able to stop it because they're only playing into the plan. They're playing into the momentum of how things need to go according to the script that was written.
Hmm,
These actors cannot deviate from the script.
that's
They're
right.
going to play out the scenes, and the scenes are going to shift exactly how they're designed to shift and bring the results that are designed to bring the results. And so I think we might be at that place now. It's companies like Ripple and the amount of good hearted people that are now infiltrated all throughout the different world systems that have the know how and the drive and the passion to actually make the change. And they're in the position to actually do it. It can't be stopped. Why? Because they have intellectual property, God given thoughts that bring the more effective solution that becomes the chess move that puts the other team in checkmate. So it's going to happen. And I think we get to witness that in months to maybe a year.
Yeah,
That's not very long,
no,
considering we waited for this Ripple thing to be over for 4 years.
4 years, and it's been 4 years, and you can attest to it. Even before the lawsuit, I said 2025. It just was the
You
number in
did.
my head. I was said
Hmm.
2025 is when it will all happen. And then that lawsuit happened, and I was like, "Ooh." And then it just kept going and going, and now here we
Hmm.
are, 2024, and it's finally coming to a close. And 20,
4 months. There's only
yeah,
4 months left.
yeah,
That's crazy.
it is. It doesn't feel like it's been 4 years. That being
Mm-mm.
said, the time of COVID feels almost like a fever dream. It was so bizarre. Like if you're looking back on it, because and we have not gone back to, and it's, I hate that they were right on this aspect. They're like, we're never going to go back to the world that we were just in. And again, that's not a bad thing. Things change. Things will change for the positive because you have to look for when you look for the positive, everything will, the changes will always be positive. But it was interesting that like COVID's done, the mandates are over. They're not asking you to get vaccinated for going to a movie theater anymore. And yeah, like I got my we all have our jobs and our daily lives back, but the world does feel so different. It doesn't feel like it was because the veil's gone. The veil of whatever was happening or whoever was ruling the world or thought they were, it's all just, it's gone, it's done, it's over. And all these people who claim to be in charge are, it's like, all right, step aside. It's time for something new.
Ooh, the
Yeah, we don't,
supplanting
the
stage.
supplant, it is the supplanting stage because we don't want what they want. The
Mm,
mass majority of people don't want what the people who, the decision makers, we'll call them, they're making decisions through selfish means. And here's the kicker: we all do it. We all make selfish decisions. There's to a certain degree, and that's where like you want to give someone an evil label. There are evil forces out there, absolutely. But when you look at, say, we'll just use the political spectrum because it's easy to pick at politicians. How many of us, and I'm not saying all of us, but how many of us, if someone came up to you and says, "Hey, if you help this bill go through, here's like $500,000," you think, "Wow, that can help me. That can help my family. I could even put some back into my community." And this bill says it will help this corporation be able to just maybe create more jobs, but it's not looking at the environmental impact. But it creates jobs, it creates money into the economy, and you think you're doing good. But there's still the kicker of like, well, now this corporation doesn't have to follow certain rules in this area, which could impact it, which could then impact other people. So there's just the two sides. They do think they're doing good. I don't think there's a lot of people who think just yes, yes, right? Like I don't think there's the people going like this all the time. And then there's people like George Soros, where I truly believe that is what he's doing. But in the grand scheme of like most people, I don't think that's the case. I think, uh, even though they may, like some may look it over and be like, ooh, there's some things in here I don't truly care for. But look at the stuff that this would be good for. It's the yin to the yang. It's just like what it's like. You gotta deal with that. And within that line of work, I'm sure a lot of them are aware. If I don't take this deal, I'm sure they'll just go to the next guy, and that guy will.
mm.
And I'm not. Again, I'm just kind of spitballing and just kind of talking about it. I'm not trying to justify any of it, and I'm not trying to. I'm not justifying or criticizing on a level more so than just uh, posturing on it.
Mm, mhm.
It's yeah, like where it's like what the road to hell is paved with good intention, I guess they say.
Ah, yes.
I don't think anyone's trying to actually build that road.
Well, I mean, deceitful desires, right?
Ooh, I like
Deceitful
that.
desires of the heart. What makes the heart a liar in some cases?
Mm.
Because, we think we're chasing after something good, but really, yeah, that was just part of the trap all along. But you know what? Even that trap was part of the plan.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing wrong with going down an animal trail. In fact, that animal trail was probably 100% necessary because I had to learn very specific things from that animal trail that then calibrates my character into who I actually am.
Mm.
So, in that sense, I'm better off because I went down that animal trail, even though in the moments, yeah, it didn't seem all that beneficial or healthy. It seemed actually quite detrimental and possibly even detrimental to others. But if that's all part of it, that's all part of the dream sequence. experience that shapes us into who we truly are and upgrades us into something more than we can possibly imagine because of who's guiding us
Mm.
and who's living inside of us. Well, then to that I say, let's get into those developments.
Yes.
Let's get into it. Let's embrace it. Let's engage into it. Let's lean into it because whatever is going to come, it's going to come. But how I receive that particular situation, well, that's going to determine the state of my soul in the moment. And that is something that I have been groomed to steward in a way now that is far superior than 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, because I've been led to the point where I've been given the gift of being able to actually recognize what's true, interpret things for the truth of why they're there to serve as good, and how to find something worthy of praise every single moment. What does that do? Puts me into a constant state of appreciation. What does that do? That allows me to worship in spirit and in truth. What does that do? That allows me to live with God in my heart, connected with Him at all times, and experience life with Him in every moment, no matter what the season. What does that do? It brings joy. It brings
Ah,
peace. It brings love. It brings goodness. It brings kindness. It brings liberation. It brings confidence. It brings humility. All this stuff that we admire and crave.
amen. Beautifully said. And I think how you choose to live is indicative of a good life. And I truly respect and appreciate how much focus and effort you put into living so close to God. It is a wonderful state of being. And I know that from my own experience of when I do my best to do so, that I fail a lot of the time, but I do my best. And whenever I feel close to God, I feel at my most peace, my happiest, and just my healthiest. Everything always feels aligned and good. And the to make the effort to stay in that state is paramount for living a good life. It really is.
Hmm.
And I think you're onto something, and something that you and many before you and all followers of Christ already know to be true. It's a beautiful state. Christ consciousness, baby.
KG3.
LA5.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think we're all being led into that. It's just like, pretty sure it's Second Corinthians. It talks about the different stages of how, since all of humanity fell through Adam, one man's actions, it makes sense that all of humanity would be saved through one man, Jesus, the life giving spirit, but each in its phases.
Mm-hmm.
The first fruits, well, first Jesus himself dies, goes into the earth, plants his spirit, boom, goes back to heaven. But then the first fruits, and that's the cloud of witnesses that all rise with him after, well, basically the rapture. And then in the end, he comes back with all of his body that's already online, and then is able to interact with all of God's children that are still left on earth. And then the Father becomes everything to everyone. It states that very clearly. That's the final sentence of the paragraph. The Father becomes everything to everyone. And it says that death is defeated. The final enemy, death, is defeated forever. So we're being led there. And Jesus said very clearly that my sheep will hear my voice and they will follow me. It doesn't say if they hear my voice, then they will follow me. He says that we will hear his voice. And so then that makes me think, where do thoughts actually come from? What about the thoughts that guide my decisions? The thoughts that end up making beneficial choices for me that improves my life and my walk with God? Are those the thoughts that are actually his voice? And when I receive those thoughts, is it the inspiration that triggers inside of me the recognition that it's his voice, thus eliciting passion inside of me to then make that choice, which is why he also says, I will implant within you the passion to do what is right, the passion to do what pleases me. It's a controlled process. And every single child of God, we all make it in the end because He's the one that's doing it.
That's
And
right.
where we are in our stages, that's where we're at in our story. No one's ahead, no one's behind. Everyone's exactly where they've always been predestined to be, doing the things they're always supposed to do, playing the roles that they've always supposed to play, so that all of that perfect plan can play out just like those rice to 150-pound slab.
That's
It's
right.
all got to go in a very specific way.
That's right.
And we can't see it. We can only experience it in time, moment by moment, and look for the things that are of Him.
Find that treasure map. Know where that X is.
Flow of good gifts.
Flow of good
Treasure in every
gifts.
moment.
That is right. Going with the flow and following the path to God's graces.
So good.
It is. Well, LA5, perhaps now's a
KG3.
time to say goodbye.
I feel it.
Right on.
Feels conclusive.
It does feel conclusive. We always like to bring things back to where we start, and it's always a pleasure talking with you. LA5.
KG3. Always a pleasure.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.